Hey slimy cats, it's me, Slimy Thoughts. Arguing with people on the right is an exercise in frustration most of the time. Somehow, they're able to win an argument even when they're obviously wrong. Somehow, they're able to get away with obvious lies, even when you point out counter-evidence. They make wild appeals to emotion and reject any facts you bring to the table and still manage to portray you as the emotional and irrational party. The left cares about presenting accurate information, recognizing science and data, even when it conflicts with our beliefs, which is seldom, because our beliefs are based on science and data. The right, by contrast, cares about winning arguments. That's where their energy goes, and so they almost always win arguments. Usually, even if you walk away feeling like you won, even if you said nothing but the truth, and they just said random nonsense at you, they managed to get their talking points out there and normalize to a degree that we can only dream of. Ask the average person who they think should own the means of production and they'll say, what does that mean? And then ask them what they think of the war on Christmas and whether or not they agree with the right-wing position that there is a war on Christmas, they have an opinion on it. And the alleged war on Christmas is not a tentpole issue for the right. It's not what they base their entire economic outlook on. It's a small little bugaboo they get to kick up a stink about a couple times a year. And it's nonsense, obviously. Try walking into any store for the next 2 months and not hearing a Christmas song. You won't be able to, and it sucks. But even though it's a frivolous thing and they're so clearly friggin' wrong, everyone knows what they're complaining about. Everyone has strong feelings about it. Look at the Trumpadumps trying to build a wall between the United States and Mexico. Even if you're racist enough to want that, it's not going to work because planes. And also because most undocumented immigrants in the United States entered the country legally and just let their visa expire. So border security will do literally nothing. But it doesn't matter how foolish their positions are. It doesn't matter how easily discredited their arguments are. You can look them in the eye and give them an irrefutable argument for why their positions fall flat on their dick, and it won't matter. You'll still lose the argument. But the thing is, you might not realize you lost the argument. There was a watershed moment a few years ago that a lot of people misinterpreted.
And you did not answer the question.
I did answer your question.
No, you did not. You did not answer
the
question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts.
Here, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway, perhaps best known as the Leech Woman from Full Moon Entertainment's Puppet Master franchise, tells NBC's Chuck Todd that the inaccurate numbers that the press office gave for President Trumpadump's inauguration crowd was simply an alternative fact. And oh ho ho was such mockery made of this statement. There are no alternative facts, madam. Something is either a fact or a falsehood. You don't get to choose what is and what is not a fact. You're busted. Living in your own little world, just trying to make up whatever facts are convenient for you. And yeah, she's doing that, but she's not admitting to doing that in this clip. She very clearly meant that Chuck had some information and the White House had been given conflicting information. Now that's probably made up, like she was probably lying, but she wasn't admitting to editing reality to suit her political goals like people wanted to pretend like she was doing. And I'll say it again, she is doing that. She's just not admitting to it by saying alternative facts. In context, she's saying that there were 2 sets of information that both purported to be factual. The way people in the center and the left wanted to read it was that she had some kind of slip of the tongue where she accidentally said out loud the secret game plan of just believing whatever is most politically expedient. And there's a reason that interpretation was so popular, because it seemed like such a gotcha moment, didn't it? We caught you red-handed, admitting you just believe whatever's convenient for you. Busted, lady! You're done. You'll never work in this town again. See, that's how we argue, with word games. We can trick you into saying the wrong things, and then you'll be defeated. If we can use a clever turn of phrase, you'll just be left there like, If we catch you using the wrong information, we win. We view political rhetoric like we're trying to send Mr. Mixius Pitlick back to the fifth dimension. If we can just get him to say kill Tipsy's him, we win. And they make it so easy to do that because they say the wildest, wrongest stuff. Hey, did you know that global warming can't be real because it's cold outside? Oh, did I say global warming? Sorry, I meant climate change, which these loony lefties had to change it to because there isn't any warming like they said there would be. Actually, sir, you're confusing climate and weather. It can be cold outside and still warming globally. In fact, some places will be made colder by an increase in global temperature because the polar ice caps melt and dump cold water into the ocean. Think of it this way, if you put an ice cube on a table and then turned on the heat, the ice cube would melt and make part of the table where it was a little bit colder temporarily. Also, climate change is an effect of global warming, referring to the disruption caused to the climate as caused by the warming of the Earth. The two terms have been used for decades. The paper that coined the term global warming was called Climatic Change: Are We on the Brink of a Pronounced Global Warming?, which was authored by Wallace Brocker in 1975. The term climate change dates back even further to like the 1950s at least. Got him! Fucking got him! That's the real thing. Good luck coming back from that asshole. And then the other guy's like, yeah, whatever you say, pal, let me just shovel 6 inches of global warming off the driveway. Now you or anyone who recognizes the reality of climate change might look at that exchange and say to yourself, well, the right-wing guy is a ding-dong. He's hopeless, and the other guy made him look foolish. But that's a miscalculation. All of that nerd shit I said, all of the stuff from the guy who has my position and is therefore logical and not a big doofus, that's not going to win anyone over. The other guy has pithy jokes. There's a surface level logic to what he's saying. But when you apply any level of scrutiny to it, you realize it doesn't really work. Here's the thing though, nobody will apply that scrutiny to it because it's a joke. Jokes are not meant to be scrutinized, analyzed, or disproven. You can prove that a joke is made on false premises, but nobody cares. It's a joke. Chickens don't cross a lot of roads either. They're jokes. Sometimes it's not a joke though. Sometimes it's an aphorism or an analogy, a truism, a soundbite. You're not meant to analyze the content. You're meant to take that on face value. And if you can't disprove the simple logic it presents, but instead attack the complicated logic it takes for granted, you're just treading water. You can say whatever you want. You can make up whatever bullshit you got. But I know it only snows when it's cold. See, the eyes is what... Eyeballs. 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 Hello and welcome to the Eyeball Zone. There is no escape and there is no relief. I was just talking about jokes. You want to talk about jokes? I got jokes for you. Check out this video from Harrison Engstrom talking about how weirdos talk about how political correctness is ruining comedy. It's not. Those people are just shitty. This is a topic that is close to my heart as a former stand-up comedian and current stick-in-the-mud woke scold. The video looks at it from a comedy perspective rather than a social justice perspective from some SJW like you might expect. And just looks at things from a non-judgmental entertainment perspective. Check it out, or I will use my social media clout to cancel you. Do you have a small lefty project you want eyeballs to conquer and leave fallow in their endless march ever forward? Send me
no more than one email
at thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com with the word eyeballs somewhere in the subject line, and pertinent details like the pronouns you use. You will not receive a reply. I checked my spam filter, don't worry, I got your email. I also get hundreds of other emails, so everybody relax. I return you now to the old flesh. That's weird. The time code on my camera just skipped ahead like 2 minutes. This happens to me like every video. I don't understand. Like about halfway through, it just skips ahead 2 minutes randomly. If anybody knows about cameras and why it does that, let me know. I don't think right-wingers are less intelligent than leftos. I certainly don't think they're less intelligent than me. I'm not entirely certain it's possible to be less intelligent than me. But seriously, folks, intelligence doesn't exist. It's an arbitrary and socially constructed conglomeration of a lot of qualities that aren't really related to one another that much. I might be able to use words like conglomeration, but try and get me to add 2 3-digit numbers together and I'm like, Can I use a calculator, please? I mention this because it might seem like I'm saying they're bad at thinking because they disagree with me, but the people who agree with me, they're very good at thinking. And I don't really believe that. I don't really see this as an issue of people's ability to think critically, but rather just the way that the human mind processes information. Your brain is lazy, not your brain specifically, just the human brain. It wants to do the least amount of work possible at any given time, which is why you can't feel your tongue inside your mouth most of the time, but definitely can now that I pointed it out to you. Hey, ever wonder what your teeth taste like? You'll never know. If your brain is given two explanations for something, one of which is boring and requires you to mentally picture a bunch of stuff and follow step-by-step processes and blah, 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 nah, you're not going to do that unless you're interested in the subject or otherwise to have some compelling reason to learn it. And that's not a judgment call on you. That's just how brains are. The human mind resists learning complicated ideas unless necessary. And there's a good reason for that. You don't need a lot of the information that you learn in a day. Do you need to remember the color of every house you drove by? Do you need to remember the entire menu at the Arby's you went to for lunch? It's all processed roast beef. It's fine. Your brain consumes glucose to function, and studies show that more cognitively demanding tasks require more glucose, which makes sense. Brains are subject to the laws of thermodynamics like everything else, and they require fuel to perform tasks, and that fuel is finite. It has to ration what it will and will not spend calories on. The long and short of this is that if you need someone to remember something, you need to entergage them, both entertain and engage them. Failing that, you have to give them the simplest, most bare-bones idea possible that requires the smallest expenditure of glucose. I think, anyway. I don't know. I'm not a neuroscientist. It's probably way more complicated than that. Now let's take it back to the example I gave a moment ago about global warming. In that conversation, which party did that? The steel man who said the cool stuff I agree with, or the straw man who said foolish stuff I don't agree with? The dingus did. The dingus said the easy to understand stuff, the stuff that was a joke, the stuff that even if you don't like, you got so mad that you'll remember. Now think of the guy who coined the term global warming. What was his name again? Wallace Brocker. You probably didn't remember because it's probably not relevant to you. So your brain was like, nah, I'm not going to waste glucose on that fool. So what does this highly uninformed pseudoscientific digression teach us? Well, while we're focusing on comprehensive, informative, and witty comebacks, they come up with catchy, easy to understand, and fun ideas to repeat over and over and over and over and over and over. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but people find an argument more compelling when they hear it multiple times. There's a problem, though. This type of rhetoric favors positions that are common sense, which is to say, ideas that might not stand up to scrutiny, but are believed to be true and justify themselves through simple, albeit sometimes fallacious logic. Take every Oxford polo-wearing motherfucker that argues we can't raise the minimum wage because that'll lead to unemployment. It makes sense on the surface. If hiring people is more expensive, then companies won't hire as many people. Very simple, very straightforward logic. It's wrong, though, and it's hard to explain why without making people visualize a bunch of shit. Thing is, businesses are going to hire as few people as they can, regardless of how much the minimum wage is. Whatever the fewest amount of people they can operate with, that's how many they will operate with. Because any amount of money that they have to pay someone is more than not money. The only time in which a minimum wage would have an effect on the cost-benefit analysis of hiring people would be if raising the minimum wage itself made the cost of keeping that employee greater than the value that employee produces in return, which is seldom the case. It would also have to offset the influx of new customers with more pocket change to buy their products and or services. And you can look at real data to see this in action. There is negligible or no increase in unemployment where the minimum wage is raised, regardless of whatever bullshit Econ 101 supply-demand curves predict. But the wrong logic sticks in your brain, while reality is boring and might make sense to you, but it's hard to make people remember. The bad minimum wage argument is what advertisers call sticky. Something that remains in your head even if you don't want it to. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. And right-wingers are really good at coming up with sticky ideas. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they have million-dollar think tanks full of advertising firms and public relations experts, not to mention a complacent mass media astroturfing their ideas for them. They're wrong, but they're wrong in memorable ways. We're right, but we're right in ways that are boring and require you to read stuff, which is a much higher buy-in. And I see this problem, but I'm not so sure I have the solution. We gotta have stickier ideas? Okay, now what? It's hard to condense complicated, unorthodox ideas into small, quippy sound bites. And I'm not talking about slogans. Anyone can make a slogan, that's easy. Workers of the world unite, like, yeah, no shit. That's an abstraction. It relies on you already knowing what it means and just helps you express that you support it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with saying that, I'm just saying it's not really conveying any information. What I'm talking about are ideas that themselves stick in your mind. Just real simple and easy to understand ideas that you can't get out of your brain. And that's easier said than done. I tried to explain this idea and it took me like 20 fucking minutes. All I'm saying is, it might not be enough to be right. It might not be enough to be informed and comprehensive. We also have to be compelling. We got to make our ideas easy to understand, or else we're ever only going to attract people who are already willing to listen and do the work, who we probably would have attracted anyway because those people sound chill as hell. So don't complain about guillotine memes. I get it. The guillotines were used against peasants and nobles alike and whatever. It's not historical. But it's a compelling and evocative symbol in the public consciousness of lower class revolt, and while its legacy is complicated in reality, its rhetorical power is very useful as a means of expressing the rage and resentment of the oppressed and what happens if the upper crust take their power for granted. There, I've ruined my comment section. I look forward to everyone debating the guillotine and whether we should make guillotine jokes, and ignoring every other word that I've said. Why do I do this to myself? I don't know. I guess I like having a bad time online and ruining my mental health. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Please press the like and subscribe buttons here on youtube.com. This video is brought to you by Slimespace. Slimespace is a Patreon page at youtube.com/thoughtslime, where you can give me money to make videos. Use coupon code ThoughtSlime to get whatever percentage off your order you want, because you decide how much or how little you want to give, or if you want to give it all. Hey, did you know that I stream on twitch.tv/thoughtslime? I do that over there every 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, I do little surprise streams, so just go there, check me out, follow me on Twitch, give me your precious bits. Want more Thought Slime? There's other videos on this channel, but you can also check out videos on Scaredy Cats at youtube.com/scaredycatstv, where I talk about horror movies and spook-em-ups in general.